and bringing us here today, Lord, that we can meet with each other and learn more about you and learn more about ourselves and our fellowship, God. We just thank you and we praise you for the start of a new week. We pray that you'll be with us in everything we do this week as we go out. In your name we pray. Amen.
Boy, everyone's really quiet. Sorry, it takes a minute to change over here.
You could actually move the chair where that bench was, Scott, so that it's not
Not in the what?
yeah, like the door in the sun, yeah, isn't that what?
It's okay. I'm okay if they can't see me. So I feel like I'm setting up a cockpit here.
Need the microphone.
Yeah. I was hoping to go without the microphone. Okay, good morning, everyone. We're about to start our second week on culture in Mediterranean culture in the time of Jesus. And for those who are interested, here's the book we're going through, Windows on the World of Jesus. I have, for those who are so interested, there's another book, and this is, I believe, actually a textbook for either Bible colleges or things like that. But it's a New Testament World by Bruce Molina, and it's a study on, it's a cultural anthropology during that time of Jesus. So imagine Windows on the World of Jesus on steroids. It's kind of like when you read N.T. Wright and you read The Challenge of Jesus, and then you read the New Testament and the people of God with all the footnotes and tiny little font and more depth. This has more depth, though not to an N.T. Wright level. If it was an N.T. Wright level, this would be like a 5-volume set. Like I said, anyone who gets like a paragraph criticism from like John Piper and then writes a 2,100-page response, I'd be curious what like his notes to his wife would be like, on Valentine's or something. It's got to be like what, a 10-page card.
I love you and that's it.
Yeah, maybe he's used all his words. Okay. As we begin, and this is a little different because, in using a book and we're kind of referring back and forth, so this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone here. So pardon me as I kind of find my way going through this. One of the things is as humans, we desire to find meaning. We desire to, and this meaning many times is derived from we create boundaries. And these boundaries enable us to determine, for example, we create boundaries, for example, between countries. There's invisible boundaries. If you go, on the border of the United States and Canada, there's not a huge wall there, but there's a boundary that's there. In fact, there was one boundary where the surveyors, there was a surveyor from the Canadians and a surveyor from the American side, when they were drawing the boundary, They were supposed to draw at a different place, but they were so happy they had gotten near the end of their work. They had drank so much whiskey that they drew the boundary in the wrong place. And so the U.S.-Canadian border actually is that boundary line in one area is a little bit different than it was supposed to be because of a drunk American and a drunk Canadian. So, but boundaries, these invisible lines. We have them on states. We went to North Carolina, and we were driving through. I thought, I wanted to go into Tennessee, but I knew I just, we didn't have time to do it. So we came to the, you see the sign, you are now leaving North Carolina. Then on the other side it says, welcome to Tennessee. And it was kind of cool. As we got out of the car, we walked from North Carolina into Tennessee. Was it anything momentous? No, but there's a boundary there, even though we don't always see it. Well, there are boundaries in our lives, and some of the boundaries are, for example, who's on my side and who's not? What's safe and what is not? And then as I look at who's on my side, as we look at this, we have other boundaries. We have boundaries that define our life. Boundaries such as birth, childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, middle age, retirement, old age. And there's these boundaries in which we have roles that some are things that are physically happening to us during these times, but we also have roles that we take on. We have boundaries such as what is normal or acceptable behavior and what is abnormal. For example, if you lived on a farm and you go out in the field, that soil that is in the field is a wonderful thing. Within that, you are able to plant crops, and they will yield a produce that would be able to feed your family. But if you took a couple of shovels full of that soil and you throw it inside the house, it now becomes dirt because it is outside of its proper place. It has crossed its normal boundary. So within Mediterranean society, Mediterranean culture, success was defined by the ability to stay within your boundaries. And one of the key boundaries was your family, your kinship group, or the in-group. If you, again, we talked about last week, if you saw the movie Meet the Fockers, the circle of trust, are you in the circle of trust or are you out of the circle of trust? And that will be a future study that will be coming up where we'll look at what that means. So of the groups, your kinship group is the most significant. That would be your family ties. And this is because within Mediterranean society, togetherness, belonging is a key, it's a core value. Okay, it's a core value. Where maybe in American society, success would be more of a core value. Okay? So, and this is why it's important that we try to identify and we look at this stuff, because if we try to impose our lens on the world and project it back in that time, we're going to make assumptions that they would have never made. So, this kinship group, this was where individuals would get their sense of identity from. But in order to be accepted within this group, not only kinship, but in that society, you had to follow a set of rules of conduct that had been passed down through time. And these rules of order were they were centered within this code of conduct that was called honor and shame. Now, honor speaks of a primarily because you're tied to your kinship group. So honor primarily speaks of there's an inherited honor that comes from your family, kind of like father like son, like mother like daughter. There's you came from a group of illustrious ancestors who conducted themselves honorably, and as they conducted themselves honorably and maintained that family's honor, you would be you are embedded within that family group, and you acquire that honor. Even though you did nothing to deserve it, you have acquired that honor. Kind of like if you won let's say someone was to give you $1 million. Well, you're now a millionaire, but you acquired it. You did nothing to actually go out and earn it. Okay, so there's that inherited honor. Now there's the acquired honor, which is the honor that you go out and you maintain. Now, this is maintained through a series of challenges and responses. Number one, there's something we need to keep in mind. Actually, a few things. But the game of challenge and response was a game between equals, of equal social standing. Number two, honor was viewed as a limited quantity substance. So it wasn't like there was unlimited honor and there was plenty of honor for everybody, but there's a fixed circle, a fixed pie of honor. And your job was to vigorously, forcefully defend that honor no matter what. But in order for you to grow in honor, somebody had to lose honor. Okay? Because the honor system couldn't be out of balance. You can't create more honor. It goes because I have to take it from somebody else. So, but then you also think of what and you have to think of that culture. They couldn't just go to the grocery store if you needed food and say, well, I'm going to go, we didn't produce enough lettuce. I need to go pick up some more lettuce. Nope. All the lettuce you had was what you produced, what you grew. Now remember, the kinship, the family group, that was the primary producing unit, and it was also the primary consuming unit. So you, as the family, you produced the goods that typically your family consumed, food. You went out, you worked in the field that enabled you to then either gain money that you could buy food. You grew food, or so you could buy cloth. Once the cloth was purchased, maybe you would make a garment that you would sell. So the family was a producing group, and it was also a consuming group. But again, you weren't going to go to, let's say, oh, you know what? Macy's has a great sale today. I need a couple more pairs of pants, and I need like 5 more black T-shirts. When we work in the field. So I gotta get over. Nope, you didn't. It was what you produced. So we have to keep that mindset. So the idea of honor being a limited quantity would actually make sense. Now, so honor speaks to a person, a group's claim, so let's say the family group, number one, and it would also speak to a person as being within that group. It can, and then there could be other groups, such as the honor of a village. Remember when Nathaniel, when they said, they talked about Jesus of Nazareth, and Nathaniel said, "Can any good thing come out of Nazareth?" So, you see, Nazareth was considered lower class. It didn't have the honor of some of the other cities in the Galilee would have had. So, and you would be identified by that city. So again, he was always Jesus of Nazareth. Honor is a socially acknowledged worth. Not only is it, see, for honor to be meaningful, not only do I have to have it by virtue of my ancestors, and then virtue of me maintaining and viewing all my interactions with outsiders to defend that honor, but honor then has to be acknowledged by the community. So if you were acting in a way to claim more honor than what was due you, you were a usurper. You were claiming honor that you didn't deserve, and you would be ridiculed and mocked and shamed by the community. Honor was also where it would be the equivalent of our credit rating. Having a good FICO score enables us to get access to loans, better interest rates, okay? That was what honor was in that society. That was the credit rating, because merchants were notoriously dishonest. Merchants could have different scales that they could use so that they could cheat you. And it was recognized that, so that if you could cheat a merchant, it was actually considered a virtuous and good thing, because they were viewed as such crooks. So, but if you were a person who was esteemed and honorable, they would not try to do you under, so to speak. I censored myself a little in the term I was going to use. So honor was the way in which that credit rating that allowed society to function, and whereby people would gain meaning and so forth in that. Let's see. So what are some of the elements of a good honor rating? Well, number one, it's going to be the status of the father. Okay? The father was preeminent, and then the males in the household. Females their status was embedded within the males of that family. The male domain was the outside in the public square. The women were not really to be out there except to go to the market, and they would ideally be in company with other family members to safely go out there. The females were to obey the males, especially the father. They were to always promote the honor of the father, the males in the family.
So you're saying there's a pecking order?
Yeah, and women were kind of low on it. The females were also it was their job to raise the children. So it was very important that, that was the woman's job, to raise those children, and then I guess we'd call it the bar mitzvah. When the males came of age, then the boys were able to go out and be with their dads and learn what it meant to be a man. Though moms had considerable influence. In fact, the mother-son relationship was probably closer than the husband-wife relationship, which we typically do not think of. But sons were a way to honor for a woman. Also, adultery, for example, could be considered an honor challenge. Because now, women can commit adultery on their husbands, but husbands cannot commit adultery on their wives, because the wives are embedded in the husband, and therefore, how can you commit adultery on someone who really, I guess in some regards, doesn't quite exist?
That makes sense.
So, in that honor, so that is why there was such anger towards those challenges, because if I as a father could not protect those women in my household, if I could not protect them, then I would lose honor in the sight of the community, and I would be shamed because I was unable to protect those that were within my charge. Now, this included my wife, my unmarried daughters, and it would even include guests within my home. They were under my protection. And therefore, it would be my job to vigorously defend any affront that would be made on them. Now, and again, an attack on anyone's honor is going to be met with a forceful challenge. I need to knock them back on their heels. I need to make sure that they know, that they have to back down from that challenge. Now, here's a weird one. To express gratitude to an equal means that you're calling a halt to an ongoing social relationship. So if I said to Steve, when they came and they were working, let's say had dinner with Steve, and I said, you know what, Steve, no more, thank you, no more. I would never thank him for providing dinner for me, because to do so would mean that, Steve, we're equals, but you know what? I don't really need you anymore. I don't need you to be a part of my life anymore. So, thank you, but no more. So you see, you never would say thank you to an equal. It was just, there was that game of reciprocation. So if Steve did for me, that was my job to make sure that I, in that game of challenge and response, would do the same for Steve, offer him dinner, but I had to try to make sure that dinner was nicer than the one that he presented to me. So challenge and response. You've got to understand that. And when you think of the story of Jesus, and you think of his interactions with the scribes and the Pharisees, the whole thing of challenge and response, they were challenging his authority as a teacher. And so he would then respond and challenge them. Now, of course, there were rules as to how, like anything, there's got to be rules to any game. And the rules were, like if someone dared you, you didn't go right to, I triple dog dare you. You never went that way. You gradually escalated the conflict. And for example, when Jesus said, you know what? You are of your father, you're a bunch of snakes, and you are of your father, the devil. He went beyond a triple dog dare. Okay? He escalated that conflict way up there on that challenge and response. And so they wanted to kill him, because they had to gain their honor back. And the way you do it is kill him. So These are some concepts on honor. Now, what I wanted to do is just look through a couple of these windows, keeping this stuff in mind, and we'll just kind of look at them a little bit. I'm going to read the window, and we'll look at it. So, Ho Didor, Hank Wilkins' neighbor, was extremely infuriated one morning. Hank went up and asked him what was bothering him. Yesterday, Ho said, I went out to the village and found my sons and asked them to help me finish some work that remained in the field. I ran into them in the busy village square and asked them to come and help me finish the work. They told me that they were busy at the moment putting a roof on a neighbor's house, but they would come tomorrow or the day after. The response sounded reasonable, so Hank could not figure out what made Ho so angry. Why was he so infuriated? And why do we think? The children, because they did not immediately obey that request and they procrastinated, they dishonored their father. And so those who heard that, what they would see is, even his own children will not honor him, how is he a man of honor? Okay, so he had been dishonored. Now we look at that and go, well, gosh, they were in the middle of something. You know, I mean, who knows? Maybe they were working and, they were bringing in some money for the family and that. So why is Dad getting so uptight? Because it was all about the perceived honor, and his children did not show it. And he said, well, okay, but let's say they were making money. Well, money wasn't the currency in that time. It was honor as the currency. Money is only useful if it can be translated into honor. If you cannot translate it into honor, it's no big deal. It's just waste. Okay? And the next window, just so we can kind of move on here, because I think I've gone a little longer than I normally do. Steve Crown's business in first century Judea took him through a number of villages outside of Jerusalem. One day he passed through a certain village. He saw a group of old men congratulating one of their peers. His curiosity excited, Steve asked a bystander what was the occasion for the celebrations. The bystander said that the old man's cronies were congratulating him because his oldest son had just returned from a village on the Mount of Olives and had killed the old man's daughter, who had eloped with her boyfriend. Steve was horrified at the thought. Why was the homicide an occasion for congratulations? Because the daughter was embedded in the father. It was not her decision to decide who she got to marry. It was her father's decision. Her thoughts, her opinions did not matter. Her job was to do what her father said and to be busy within the house. By so eloping, she in essence said, my father's authority over me does not matter. I am going to do what I want to do. So therefore, the only way that honor could be restored is her brother had to go and kill her. And by killing her, the family's honor could then be brought back to normal. She violated the honor code, and so the way that was remedied is her life had to be taken. Now, the oldest son acted as a redeemer, as a goel. We remember that term from the book of Ruth, a goel, a kinsman redeemer. That's what he was functioning as. He was functioning as that. The kinsman redeemer, their job was to go and restore lost family honor. It could be the purchase of someone who had become so poor that they had sold themselves to someone else. It was their job to restore the family honor by buying them out of servitude. If a family member was killed in an accident, they were the blood avenger. They would be the one who would go and kill the other person. Or in this case, if someone, let's say, committed adultery with or had sex with one of his sisters, he would be the one who would go and kill that person for doing that. So he is, but primarily what the meaning is he is the one who restores the lost honor. Now, in looking at that, sorry, I lost my page here. So when we think of Jesus as a redeemer, it means he is the one who restores the honor to God's family. There are those who are lost. There are those who are in slavery and exile, and they have no means of paying that debt. So Jesus is the older brother, as the Goel is the kinsman redeemer. He goes and he restores that which was lost and restoring honor to God the Father and restoring honor to the family. Okay? So, honor societies, honor and shame, the important things we need to remember here. Honor was viewed as a fixed quantity. The only way honor could grow, you had to take it from someone else. So the primary business, so to speak, was maintaining that family honor and individual honor. To be concerned about that honor, and you guarded it diligently. And so if you, and this was also a rating that the community would also have to agree with and validate. So if you claimed honor that was not yours, you were viewed as a usurper and you would be shamed. Okay? So, important concept. And part of the game, part of this struggle, part of the battle of maintaining honor was this challenge and response. Challenge and response. So, we need to keep these things in mind. So as we read through the New Testament, especially when you look at the interactions of Jesus, you're seeing challenge and response. When you think of Paul, when he addresses some of his critics, think of the challenge and the response. Okay? Next week, I'm not sure who's teaching, but I can tell you the next section will be, general interpersonal behavior. Okay, so that'll be next week. So read the next section in Melina's book. Let's go ahead and close with the word of prayer. Father, we thank you for the day and all that it holds. Lord, help us to understand these things so when we read your word, Lord, that we have greater clarity so that we can understand and then make the appropriate interpretations. Lord, may we represent your heart. May we, as we go out into this world, and may we conduct ourselves honorably as your children. We commit the rest of this day to you in Jesus' name. Amen.